All right, welcome to another video by Dr. John Chun IELTS. Science. Sorry, I've always say the wrong things. So here, one of my students, Miss Nghi, she is doing her presentation of the topics now. So Miss Nghi, which topic are you going to present now?
I'm going to present reproduction and heredity.
Right, reproduction and heredity in biology, life cycle, sexual and asexual reproduction, things like that, right?
Yeah,
And what else then?
and Mendelian genetics.
Right, Mendel's law and the applications, that's it?
And mutations, natural and
Right,
artificial. Yeah.
mutations, natural and artificial selections, evolutionary theories, genetic basis of evolution, heredity and environment. All right,
Yeah.
I see. These things are actually not in my videos, but I guess you have learned it before and you have searched it online and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
All right, great. Please start.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about reproduction and heredity. First, we're going to go through some terminology of reproduction. First is sexual reproduction. It is a process of creating new individual using two parent organisms. Asexual reproduction is a process of creating new individual using one parent organism. Offspring is the new organism that result from reproduction. Gamete or sex cell, which is in males, it is called sperm, and in females is egg.
X, yeah.
Eggs. Fertilization is the joining of gametes to form offspring. Zygote is the fertilized egg cell. Yeah.
Very good. Zygote is fertilized egg cell. Very good. What else
Now
then?
we can go through reproduction. There are two types, sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. First, asexual reproduction. It requires two parents.
Asexual, actually. Asexual reproduction.
Okay, let's go through asexual reproduction. First is only require one parent, and there are four types. First is binary fission, second is budding, three is fragmentation, and four is parthenogenesis. First is binary fission. It is when a single parent double DNA and it divides into two cells, which are called clone. It usually occurs in bacteria. Second is budding. It is when a parent cell creates an outgrowth, which is called bud. And from that, it forms two individuals. One
Budding,
is the
you mean
parent
budding?
cell.
Tách rời làm đôi, đúng không? Like splitting into two, right? Budding, isn't it?
Yeah, but it like from the big cell, there's a small part that is outgrowth, and
Right.
yeah,
So
the
it's
small part.
genetically identical to the original cell, right? Nó y chang
Yeah,
về mặt sinh học luôn, right? It's
yeah.
genetically so it's genetically identical to the original cell, of course. So no genetic variation at all.
Yeah. There's
Không
no
có sự
genetic
không có sự
variation in asexual reproduction.
Yep, làm gì có sự mà đa dạng về sinh học đó đâu. It's just the same thing, it's just splitting into two.
Yeah. And it occurs in yeast and some animals like hydra. Third is fragmentation. It is when an organism breaks into two or more fragments, and that fragment will develop into a new individual. It usually occurs in plants or animals such as coral sponges or starfish. The difference between budding and fragmentation is that budding is when a parent cell creates an outgrowth, and that outgrowth breaks off to form a new organism, while fragmentation is the detachment of two or more pieces from a parent organism. The fourth one is parthenogenesis.
But
It is a
what is it called? Pathogen what?
parthenogenesis. I will write it.
Pathogenesis. Yeah, là sinh bệnh ấy. Like the creation of diseases. Pathogenesis, right?
Yeah. It is when an embryo develops from an unfertilized egg. So the egg has a complete set of genetic information and it will go through mitosis to form a multicellular organism.
Right.
And it usually occurs in invertebrate, là động vật không xương sống, fish, amphibians, or reptiles.
Okay. What else then?
Now I'm going to talk about sexual reproduction. It requires two parents, and each parent will contribute a gamete. So, for example, in human, dad will contribute a sperm, and mom will contribute an egg. And an egg and a sperm will go through fertilization to create a zygote. And from that zygote, it will develop into an embryo. And that is the early stage of development, and from that embryo will form a baby. Yay.
Okay. So basically, I think you should talk more about like life cycles, because different species, they have different life cycle. For example, a mosquito and a human, we have completely different like life cycles and different kind of transformation.
Yeah. But before that, I'm going to compare sexual and asexual reproduction.
Right.
Okay. So sexual reproduction requires two parents, and a sperm needs to fertilize egg. It occurs in animals, usually in animals, some flowering plants, or some fungi. The offspring will be different from the parent, so it provides a genetic variation, but it's time-consuming. While asexual only requires one parent, and so a single organism will make an exact copy of itself. It usually occurs in bacteria, some animals like sponges, coral. The asexual reproduction is fast, easy, but there's no genetic variation.
So basically, everything's just the same, like copies of the parent cells. Huh?
Yeah.
Is that? Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Like in terms of the genes, they're the same thing, but their how can I say, expressions might be affected by the environment. You know.
Yeah.
Like that is called what's it called? Thường biến. Like heredity and environments, like their expressions, the genes, genetic expressions is affected by the environment. You know. I'm sure you know about this one.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna talk about it later.
Right. Okay. So I can give you an example of environment and genetic expressions. That's a very classic story of the two twin brothers. You know, hai anh em Việt và Chiến trong sách giáo khoa.
No, I didn't know about that.
Nha, twins. You have to take twins into consideration because why? Twins, they have exactly the same set of genes. Nó có cùng bộ gene hết mà. And then because they live in different environment, they look differently. So one live in the north, he's a bit shorter and whiter, but one live in the south with more sunlight, and he actually developed a southern accent, you know, when he speak. That's what happened, you know. All right, so you can give like other example. For example, I mean, most of the time, people would look at twins, you know, or even like modern twins. Like sometimes Sometimes a mother can give birth to 3 or 4 children, but that is very rare, you know.
Yeah.
So normally we just look at twins because they have exactly the same set of genes, but we can see how different they are depending on their living environment. For birds, also the same. But you know, researching on humans, we might be able to get more data, you know, compared to like other animals in the wild, because they migrate a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Nó di chuyển rất là nhiều cho nên khó lấy data lắm để mà làm nghiên cứu. Nhưng mà con người thường ở yên chỗ đó chẳng hạn. Alright, so and what's the next part you're going to talk about, Miss Nghi?
Next, I'm going to talk about life cycle. First, I'm going to talk about animal life cycle. So animal life cycle is a diploid dominant life cycle. It is because most of the time we are in the diploid phase, so it's called diploid dominant life cycle. So from an egg and sperm, it will go through fertilization to create zygote, and that zygote will have, for example, in human, it have 23 pairs of chromosomes.
There are 23 pairs of chromosomes.
Yeah. And from that zygote, we'll go through mitosis to create a multicellular organism and create a human. And from that human, some cell will go through meiosis to create gamete, which is haploid.
Okay, haploid
But
and
the
diploid,
haploid phase, but the haploid phase is spent a short time.
Right, because basically, most of the time it's diploid. Very good.
Next is plant life cycle.
Depends on what kind of plant, right?
Yeah, but we can look at like at a big picture. Like plant usually go through alternating generations, which is when the haploid and diploid phase have the almost the same time. So from the gametes, we'll go through fertilization to create zygote, and from that zygote, we'll go through mitosis to create a sporophyte, which is diploid.
Yep.
Yeah. And then some cell will go through meiosis to create spores, which is haploid. Spores will go through mitosis to create gametophyte. And the spores and the gametophyte is haploid.
You have to really explain what spores are. Spores are basically a much more stable but dormant form. Okay, nó một cái dạng mà nó sống ngầm á. Like dormant means like they live when the environment is not very good for growing, they will live in a spore state, you know.
Yeah.
And then they are dormant and they are very stable. Even heat won't kill them sometimes, you know. So spores happen a lot in fungi, for example, nấm, các loại nấm. Even heat won't kill them. But that also will ensure that they will live and they will grow when the environment is more favorable for them, you know. Okay, what else then?
So you can see that mitosis happen in haploid and in both haploid and diploid phase. So it's called alternating generations. Next one is the life cycle of other fungi and algae. It is haploid dominant life cycle. So from gametes, we also go through fertilization to create zygote, and zygote will go through meiosis to create spores, and spores will go through mitosis to create gametophyte. gametophyte, and gametophyte will go through mitosis to create gamete. So the mitosis happens twice during the haploid phase. So it's the haploid dominant life cycle.
All right. What else then?
Next one is Mendelian genetics. So Mendel have an experiment that is garden peas crossing. So the reason why he grow peas is because it's easy and fast to grow. It is a good and cheap source.
A good energy source, right?
Yeah. It is a single plant, which means that the traits are easy to see, so it's easier to research on. Peas have a large number of offspring, so it's a reliable data. So Mendel's have 3 laws. First is the law of
Segregation.
Second is the law of independent assortment. And the third one is the law of dominance. Now I'm going to talk about the first law, the law of segregation. So every organism will have 2 alleles per trait, and the alleles segregate randomly into gametes. So when gametes are formed, each allele of one parent segregate randomly into the gametes. So half of the parent's gamete will carry each allele. Oh, I forgot to go through the terminology. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some terminology in this topic. First is gene, is the unit of heredity.
Heredity.
Second is allele. It is the pairs of genes.
Alleles. The alleles, yeah.
The alleles. There are pairs of genes occupying in a particular spot on chromosome that defining the same trait. Third is homozygous. It's like the same type of gene, like uppercase A, or small a and small a. Yeah.
Okay.
And the heterozygous is the different type of gene. It's like uppercase A and small a's. The fifth one is phenotype. Phenotype is the observable trait. The sixth one is the genotype. Genotype is allele combination.
The alleles combination and genotypes actually tells you from a genotype it can express into phenotypes, right?
Yeah.
Like the alleles combinations, what allele combination are there in that creature, right?
Yeah.
Nó là cái sự kết hợp alleles nào trong cái cá thể đó. Right, and then there's different kind of allele combinations. You can have what's it called, homogeneous recessive. You can have homogeneous dominant and heterogeneous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Đồng hợp lặng, đồng hợp trội và dị hợp. Yep. Right. So, but the thing here is, from the genotypes, you can have the phenotype because the gene will express itself eventually into phenotypes. Từ cái gene nó sẽ biểu đạt ra thành cái tính trạng, cái kiểu hình phenotypes. But also the environment plays a role in how the gene expresses itself as well. Đương nhiên môi trường cũng có ảnh hưởng nữa. So it's not always the same, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, what else then?
The second law is the law of independent assortment.
Yes.
It is when the alleles when they separate alleles when they separate or independent from each other. So they do not affect each other. And the recessive traits are not destroyed but still expressed in F2.
So basically, back then people think that some traits are recessive and they think it is destroyed when a dominant and a recessive individual have baby, right? Or mate, giao phối, mate, động từ to mate. Back then people think it is a possibility that the recessive trait is destroyed and it will never express again, right? But Mendel experiment proved that that idea is wrong. Can you explain further? Tại sao ý tưởng là tại sao ý tưởng lại sai? You can explain it through an experiment, you know? When the F1 mate with the F1 again, you can have the F2 generations with the recessive phenotype still available, so it's not really destroyed, right?
Yeah.
Bây giờ F1 để P đi. If the P generation recessive and dominant trait made individuals made with each other, you have F1 is 100% of the dominant trait, right? F1 luôn luôn nó sẽ ra là cỡ khoảng 100% của tính trạng lặng, của tính trạng trội.
Yeah.
But then when you let the F1 mate with the F1 generation again, the F2 generation, there will be some individuals that show the recessive trait, right? Một số cá thể nó sẽ vẫn thể hiện ra cái tính trạng lặng. So what is the conclusion of that?
So the conclusion is that the recessive trait is not destroyed or being affected by the dominant one, but is still inherited. Yeah.
So it's still being inherited through the generations.
Yeah.
Okay, what else then?
Next one is the third law, the law of dominance. So the dominant allele will overshadow the recessive one. And when two parents of opposite traits mate, the F1 will more likely to express the dominant trait. No, F1 will express dominant trait. Yeah.
Right. What else then? Go on. Don't just wait for me.
Okay. Next is application. And first is the test cross. It is to figure out if a dominant phenotype is heterogeneous or homogeneous. Homogeneous. So the test is to mate the one with dominant phenotype with a recessive homogeneous. If the F1 show 100% of dominant phenotype, it is the homogeneous one. And if it show 50-50, so 50 with the dominant phenotype and 50 with the recessive phenotype,
then the creature in question, cái cá thể đang được đặt dấu chấm hỏi á, The creature in
Yeah.
question is a heterogeneous.
Heterogeneous.
Very good. There you go, you got it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is called test cross. Lại phân tích. Okay, please go on.
The next one is another application is dihybrid cross. So there are two traits, the color of the pea and the texture of the skin. It still go through the same rules.
Yes, so what happened next?
So it will result in variation of offspring. So for example, when we made big A, big A, big B, big B, and small a, small a, small b, small b, in the F1 we will have 100% of the dominant phenotype. And when we made F1 and F1, in F2 we have three.
Yes.
We will have 4 type of phenotypes. Yeah, that's it. That's it in the Mendelian genetic.
Well, I think that's good enough, I guess. I'll accept them all. Did you mention the last law? The law of dominant something?
Yeah, I did. It is.
Right. I think it's better to also mention like the fact that some trait does not show a complete dominance, you know. Nó không có show được cái chuyện mà trội hoàn toàn đâu.
Yeah.
You can give an example of the flower color, you know, like white flower and then red flower, you know, and then at one generation you have 100% of a pink flower. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so also mention the fact that some trait does not show 100% dominance. That is called incomplete dominance.
Incomplete dominance.
Trội không hoàn toàn. Sự trội không hoàn toàn. Incomplete dominance, you know. You know, when we talk about like genetics like this, it's pretty fun because people in the class will be, you know, making couples like this guy and this girl will mate and produce what kind of children, you know.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's very funny. In my class it was like that. But I'm sure every class is the same with people because people think that matching like this guy and this girl will produce what kind of children, like super ugly and super short, something like that. People are really mean when they're in high school. Yeah. Anyway, do you need time to look at the part about classical genetics? No.
I will talk about.
Wait, we still have the mutation part and other things.
I'll talk about that first.
Sorry.
Can I have some time to prepare for the mutation?
Yes, of course. All right. So what's the next part then? Classical genetics.
No, I'm going to talk about the topic of evolution. So
mutation, evolution things. Okay, got it.
First, I'm going to go through the definition of evolution. It is a change in biological characteristic over a successive generation. So natural selection and mutation is one of the mechanisms of evolution. First, I'm going to talk about natural selection. It is the natural selection.
Yes.
Is evolutionary change that comes through the production of genetic variation in every generation, but only few individuals who survive, which own a advantageous characteristic can reproduce, so that pass on that traits to its offspring.
Very good.
Yeah, so Natural selection will maximize the chance of survival and reproduction. So why is it so important? Because it's a driving force behind adaptation and diversification of species. Therefore, it shapes biological characteristics by favoring survival and reproduction of individuals with traits that are advantageous in given environment. So the process of natural selection will go through 4 key components. First, it's variation. The natural selection needs to act on existing heritable variation. So it needs some starting material. Second is inheritance. And those advantageous traits needs to be heritable.
Pass on, right?
Yeah.
So I think you forgot to mention the fact that mutation happens very slowly through time, and what can cause a mutation is the change in environment, the heat, the UV radiation, the chemicals, and some other factors, and mutation happens through a very long amount of time, like millions of years, hàng triệu năm nó mới đột biến được nha, chứ không phải đột biến lẹ được đâu.
Oh, okay.
Well, sometimes mutation can happen much faster if the time between different generations is short. For example, in E. coli bacteria, it reproduces once every 20 minutes under like optimal condition. Dưới cái tình trạng optimal, dưới cái tình trạng mà nó tối ưu á, thì cái con vi khuẩn E. coli nó nhân đôi lên mỗi cái 20 phút. So the time between the generation, cái thời gian giữa các thế hệ á, it's short, so it means that it ensures that the rate of mutation is much faster, chỉ cần cái thời gian giữa các thế hệ nó quá ngắn như vậy thì cái gọi là cái cơ hội nó có đột biến nó tăng lên nhiều lắm luôn á. Okay.
When I'm talking about natural selection,
say again.
I
think you were talking about artificial and natural selection.
Yeah, I talked about that first, and then I'm going to talk about mutation, because natural selection and mutation are part of the mechanism of evolution.
Please go on.
Okay. So in the natural selection, it will go through the pressure of the environment, like resource, predators, or climate. And when the frequency of advantageous traits increase, the individual with these traits are more likely to survive and reproduce, and an overall adaptation of the population to the environment, which results to the overall adaptation of the population to the environment. For example, in pepper moth, before the Industrial Revolution in England, the light-colored moth is dominant because it is well camouflaged against light-colored trees.
Camouflage. Nó được gọi là ngụy trang. Camouflage. It's camouflage.
But after the Industrial Revolution in England, the soot from factories darkened the trees, so the light-colored moths are more visible to predators. But the dark-colored moth can camouflage among that darkened trees so that it can survive and reproduce, which is an increase in the frequency of dark coloration within the moth population. Yeah, so the change in environment can affect the natural selection. So the natural selection is affected by the size of population, the resources, and the rate of new mutation arise. Because mutation creates variation, and variation is the starting material of natural selection. Now, I'm going to talk about mutation. Oh, should I talk about artificial? Yeah, now I'm going to talk about artificial
You're mixing up now.
selection.
Okay, the natural selection will ensure that the creatures that survive well and is the strongest will survive. The creature with the most favorable advantages will survive. That's a natural selection, you know. Artificial selection is basically human. We choose animals according to the trait that we think it's beautiful or we prefer those traits. So you can give examples of pets, you know, like dogs and cats. We choose them because they look beautiful or something like that. That's artificial selection. Okay, you can do it again. Okay, please. Natural and artificial selections.
Okay, so artificial selection
Mm-hmm.
or selective breeding is when humans choose some specific traits of a parent organism and make them to reproduce. And this repeated over many generations, and this process will give a rise to a new type of organisms. And the type of organism that result from artificial selection are considered domesticated.
Mm-hmm. Được gọi là
So,
đưa vào nhà sống chung với con người á.
yeah,
Domesticated. Mm-hmm.
yeah, as you can see in pet. So the key difference between artificial selection and natural selection is that during artificial selection, humans can choose which individuals and which traits can reproduce, but not the case in natural selection. Now, I'm going to talk about mutation, which is also a mechanism in evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So mutation is random changes in organism genetic material, which can caused by exposure to radiation, chemical agents, or replication factors. So why mutation is important? Because it creates genetic variation within a population, which is the raw material for natural selection. There are two types of mutation, which is point mutation and chromosomal mutation. Point mutation occur when a single base pair in DNA sequence change. There are three types: silent mutation, missense mutation, and
Missense and nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
silent
basically, why do they call it silent? Because they don't cause any real damage. Because you
Yeah.
cannot see the damage they cause because they're not expressed out. Nó không biểu hiện ra. Cho nên mình mới nói là silent. Nó yên lặng, độ bí yên lặng. So missense, nonsense, and then what else?
Silent.
And I think nó còn một cái tên đó là what is that? Missense, nonsense, and point mutation,
Silent.
right? Độ biến điểm, right?
Yeah. The three of them is in point mutation.
Right. So point mutation can be missense, nonsense, or another one. What is the last one? I forgot the name.
Silent.
Never mind that. Please go on.
So silent mutation, it does not cause any damage because there is no change in amino acid sequence. In missense mutation, there's a change in amino acid sequence so that it's altered its function. For example, a mutation in gene responsible for producing hemoglobin protein can lead to sickle cell anemia. It is when a red blood cell misshapen, and so it's less effective in transporting oxygen. Next is nonsense mutation. It introduced a premature stop codon, which is a production of non-functional protein. A nonsense mutation, dystrophin gene can cause a disease, a muscular disease, a severe muscle wasting disorder. Okay. So, mutations can be considered harmful, beneficial, or neutral to an organism. It is harmful when it has negative.
Say again. What you say
Harmful
about being harmful?
when it has negative effects on the organism's health and survival. For example, some mutations cause disorders such as sickle cell anemia or cystic fibrosis. Or mutation can also be beneficial when it has positive effects on organisms' health and survival. For example, some people have mutations that lower their risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Also, mutation can be neutral when it has no observable effect on the organism's trait. For example, in the silent mutation. Next is chromosomal mutations. It is a genetic changes that involve a large segment of DNA, so it can be changed in the number or the structure of chromosome, which results in altered gene expression or genetic disorder.
Most of the time it will cause the creature to not be able to have children, you know. It's called infertility, vô sinh.
Oh.
Infertility. Sự vô sinh. Most of the time, and also a lot of the cases it will cause mental retardation. Nó gọi là tâm thần á. Mental retardation, tâm thần á. So most of the cases it will cause those things, and in more serious cases it can cause death, very early death, you know. Cái chết sớm. Like for in human we have Down syndrome, you know. That is caused by the trisomy of the 21st chromosome pairs. Nó gọi là tam bội của cái nhịp sắc thể thứ 21 á. Trisomy of the 21st chromosome pair in human can cause Down syndrome. And those individuals will not survive for too long. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what else then? Okay, you can talk about other kind of theories, evolutionary theory, something like that. Okay, so you have Darwin, like the theory of Darwin, Darwinian theory of evolution. So he used to say that human actually originated from the monkey, you know. But of course, it's just a theory. A lot of people actually do not support that theory. You know, they have doubts about that theory, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, what else can you say about the evolutionary theories now?
Some people's there's a theory that there's only a single origin of life on Earth, so that every group of organisms descended from a common ancestor. Yeah. And yeah, that's it.
Common ancestor, huh? So it's there's no theory that links all human come from Africa, you know. But then because we migrate to other regions and we live there for a long time, our skin color changes, our gene expression changes too, you know. All right. Anything else you want to mention?
The environment and heredity.
Okay, please.
The human phenotypes or other phenotype of other organisms are varied because they can be affected by the environment. For example, the PKU gene, which is the disorder of phenylketonuria. So, but the environment doesn't cause the PKU, but the environment can cause it to express in the phenotype. It is when the person eat food that are high in phenylalanine, they begin to express symptoms of the genetic mutation. But if they limit or eliminate those food, they have no symptoms. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, give more examples, please.
Are the examples of the twins? One twins. There's a twins, and one live in the north, so that is shorter and have lighter skin because there's less sunlight, and one that live in the south with southern accent and darkened skin and taller because exposure to the sunlight. That's it.
All right. So so basically there's a term, it's called conversion and divergent revolution. I'm not so sure if you have heard about it. Nó gọi là tiến hóa theo cái kiểu mà nó hội tụ lại, hoặc là tiến hóa theo kiểu mà phân kỳ ra, phân tách ra. Have you heard about it?
No.
It's also about evolutionary theories. So some creatures, they do not have a common ancestor, but because they undergo a revolution that converges, and then they have similar features. So that is called convergent evolution. But some other creatures, they have the same ancestor, but because they live differently, so after some times they become different creatures and they can no longer produce viable offspring. Một số con á, dù nó có cùng cái thủy tổ, cùng cái nguồn gốc, nhưng mà nó lại sinh sống ở chế độ khác nhau, hoặc là cái cách sống khác nhau, riết hồi nó sẽ hình thành những cái giống loài khác nhau luôn, và nó sẽ không thể sản sinh ra những cái đứa con mà sống được nữa, viable offspring. Nó gọi là divergent evolution, tiến hóa theo kiểu mà phân kỳ, phân tách ra. Like for example, you know, like con la, con lừa gì đó, it's like
Yeah.
you know about like the what kind of creature is that? I don't remember the English name of the creature, but I think that the tiger and the lion, I'm not so sure if they can make like viable offspring or not. Not so sure because I don't live in a farm, you know. Anyway, but convergent revolution happens in the wild. For example, some creatures, they don't have the same ancestor, but finally they evolved to have wings so they can fly, you know.
Yeah.
Like for example, a butterfly and a mosquito, for example, they all evolved like ability to fly, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think they have the same origin, right? Cái con bướm, cái con mà con ruồi và con muỗi á, nó đều phát triển ra cái cánh để bay được. So they evolve in a way that will make them converge, you know. Nó sẽ làm cho nó hội tụ lại theo cái kiểu mà revolution như vậy. Maybe it's something you should also consider as well. Convergent and divergent revolution, you know. Is there anything else in here?
No.
All right, so I think we can move on to Mendelian classical genetics. Have you done much about it?
No. Can I have some time to prepare?
Yes, of course. All right, what are you going to talk about now? Classical genetics, right?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about inheritance patterns and structure and duplication of DNA, genetic code, and protein synthesis. For the models of heredity or the inheritance patterns, there are 4 kinds: complete dominance, incomplete dominance, X-linked inheritance, and co-dominance. For complete dominance, it is when you, for example, when you make a red flower and a white flower, and F1 it create 100% red flower. It is so.
So it means that it's identical to the dominant trait, right?
Yeah.
So it means that it is a 100% dominance. It's a complete dominance, right?
Yeah. But when in complete dominance, it create 100% pink flower.
Right.
And in X-linked inheritance, for example, hemophilia is an X-linked genetic disease in which patient cannot stop bleeding because they lack some factors, so they cannot clot. For example, a healthy male mate with a healthy female, but that female is a carrier. The F1 will there be 25% that the children can be a hemophilic patient because he's male.
Hemophilic,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the next one is co-dominance. It is when, for example, the ABO blood group, we have A, B, AB, and O. So allele A and B are both dominant, and allele O is recessive. Now I'm going to talk about the structure and duplication of DNA. So, DNA is a nucleic acid and is one of the 4 major groups of the biological macromolecules. In DNA, each nucleotide is made up of 3 parts: a 5-carbon sugar called deoxyribose, a phosphate group, and a nitrogenous base. There are 4 kinds of nitrogenous base in DNA: is adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. DNA molecules have an anti-parallel structure. The 2 strands of the helix run in the opposite direction of one another, and each strand has a 5 end and a 3 end. Next is DNA replication. It is the process of 2 strands in double-stranded DNA acts as a template to produce 2 new strands. So replication relies on the complementary base pairing, which is adenine will bond with thymine and cytosine will bond with guanine. Guanine. Next is genetic code. Genetic code will allow DNA and RNA nucleotide sequences to be translated into amino acids they represent. Next is protein synthesis. So it's a 2-step process. First, in transcription, the DNA sequence of a gene is rewritten using RNA nucleotides, and the RNA will go through additional processing steps to become mRNA. And in translation, the sequence of nucleotide in mRNA is translated into a sequence of amino acid in a polypeptide. And cells decode mRNA by reading their nucleotide in groups of 3 called codons. The complete set of correspondence between codon and amino acid is known as genetic code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, the genetic code. All right. Next part. Also talk about protein synthesis. You need to talk about transcription and translation. That's a huge part, you know. And when talk about duplication of DNA, you have to talk about a template strand and Okazaki fragment, something like that. Remember?
Oh, okay. Gonna have some time to prepare for that.
Well, we have only 5 minutes left, so maybe that will be for next time. No?
Okay, so next time I'll talk about that and biotechnology and bioenergetics.
Bioenergetic is a very difficult topic. Okay.
That so,
It
so
includes like respiration, cellular respiration, a lot of things, and then also about photosynthesis, which is even harder. Nói chung là khó
yeah.
lắm luôn á, nó khó lắm trong cái đống này luôn á.
Okay.
Alright, so maybe but you still have a lot of part in classical genetics to talk about, you know. Structure
Yeah.
of eukaryotic chromosome, gene regulation. Phải nói về
Oh.
cái gene regulation, phải nói về cái vụ lac operon á. You remember that one? Lac operon?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's that? What's the problem?
No,
Are you being lazy now or what?
no, I'm just a little too overwhelmed.
I know it's overwhelming, but let's try to finish classical genetic next time first.
Okay.
And then we can go to biotechnology and bioenergetic, okay?
Okay.
Okay, we have class on Wednesday, same time, remember?
Yeah.
Wow, Wednesday is gonna be hard.
Yeah. Wednesday is too near.
Okay, fine. Try to do whatever you can on Wednesday with
Okay.
class. Okay, right. Okay, that's the end of my videos. Please like, share this video with your friends, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and press on the bell button next to the subscribe button so you can get notified about my new uploads, okay? You can also press follow my Facebook, but please don't add me on Facebook as friends, okay? Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi nha. Các bạn hãy nhấn vào like, chia sẻ video này bạn bè các bạn. Nhấn vào nút đăng ký kênh YouTube mình và nút cái chuông kế bên cạnh để đăng ký kênh đó, để mà các bạn sẽ được thông báo về những video mới nha. Các bạn cũng có thể nhấn vào nút theo dõi Facebook mình, nhưng nhớ đừng kết bạn Facebook mình nha. Thank you and see you. Bye.